Pod in My Noggin, hosted by CK Sims, creating a platform to elevate, educate, and heal by creating a space where people can share their stories of struggle, triumph, and redemption. CKS Media.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Pod in My Noggin. This week, I am joined by a fellow Canadian, Mila Maxwell. She is the author of Finding Lady Baltimore. Love the name of this book, by the way. And it's also, just FYI, super visually appealing to someone who would be like in a bookstore. This is something that would make me stop and be like, ooh, what's this? It's very pretty. The color choices, so I don't know if you designed it or if you hired a designer, but whoever did the book cover is brilliant. So welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. And thanks for reading my book ahead of time. That's different because, I mean, I don't expect everyone to read it before they have me on their show, but this is different because you've actually read the book.
Yes. So I have read the book except for the last, I'm a little bit further than my post-it. I stopped just before chapter 33, and there's a reason I started doing that. Is because I had an author on, I think it was last year, and like we had to do a whole like massive amount of editing because I just kind of gave away the plots.
Oh.
I got excited, right? And I'm like, and I just was like, oh, and that ending, oh my gosh, when she came out and it was her the whole time. And the look on her face, and I didn't catch the cue right away either. And I kept going. I was like, okay, so now I just need to not read the last.
Was she making like this motion?
She wasn't. She was an older lady, very brilliant, wonderful, and she just was deadpanning, like as if you are giving away the story. And I was like, it took me so long to clue into what was happening.
Because you were so passionate.
Well, that's just me. I'm a very passionate person. I really love this story, and I really love that the story there's so many parallels with your real life as well. Do you know what I mean? It's a fictionalized version of your real life. So it's so many things. It's a fictionalized
memoir, basically.
Yeah. And I just love how, I got really excited when you first reached out, and I was like, and you booked your form, and then the book came a little bit later, and then I was like, okay, I'll start reading. I'm like, oh, and just so you were also aware, and I'm also excited right now, so I get very like squirrel when I get excited.
Same.
So there's so many parallels in your life with my own as well. So, because I'm an East Coaster from Newfoundland. My parents are Pentecostal ministers, so very much in the church. And there's one section I dog-eared so that I could read it at some point, because I was like, that part was just so me. But anyway, you are a mom, like a multi-hyphenate, right? So mom, like such a big job, thankless job, big job. And you're a published author now. You're a volunteer firefighter. You're a naturopath and a nutritionist and a business owner. It's a lot of things going on.
Yeah, and I actually took a second and wrote it down, multi-hyphenate. I love that description.
Well, you are. Come on. Like that's a lot of things, right? I'm sure there's probably some stuff you didn't list there that you probably could list as well, right? Survivor being one.
Yeah, and I mean, a few family members, and I mean, I don't want to give a whole bunch away, but that part of the book, my aunt was like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize that her mental health was that horrible. And I mean, it was never that level of horrible. I think there were some acute times or maybe some sometimes looking back now, knowing what I know, that I was like, man, I was really friggin' struggling, but I just didn't at the time know, because I was so used to feeling that way and so used to being anxious and in the survival mode, that now that I'm not in that headspace or in that way of thinking or that way of being, I can look back on it and be like, man, like I really needed help and I did not ask for it. I did not know where to look for it. So I was never, I don't know if I can say what it was on the show. I was never suicidal.
Of course, yes. Yeah.
But it was, I chose to have my character touch on that a little bit, just so I could make sure that I could reach certain audiences and make people that may or may not be in my situation feel seen and heard.
Yeah, so I think it's an important topic, right? And it just gives your character, right, more depth, more relatability with
Yeah.
that particular audience. So I was in my lifetime, but much later, 35, suicidal, and
Okay.
made an attempt and failed. I'm still here, thank God.
Wow.
That, you know what I mean? Like,
Thank goodness.
right? But
Yes.
at the time, I wasn't happy about it. When I
Mm-hmm.
woke up, I was like, oh, and something else I failed at. Like that was what I felt at the moment, right? I'm like, can't get anything right. But now I'm so grateful to look back, and you had mentioned that in your form, that you look back now and you can see the state you were in, but you weren't aware of it in that moment. And so I look
Yeah,
back
and
now.
it's important, I think, to reflect. I think it's important to not get stuck there, which before the
Mhm.
book and before I had an outlet for what I was feeling, that was a place that I was constantly going back to. Guilt, regret, resentment, anger, frustration, all of these things, self-hatred, that once I started writing this book, it almost became a therapeutic endeavor, because it had a place to go. And it wasn't only for me, it was to think, who else is going to read this that either is or has been in my shoes, that can relate to Morgan, that can relate to what she's been through or going through. And it's not just whether you've grown up with a sibling with disabilities or not. We're all faced with different challenges, different, um, our self-identity is challenged all the time. And I think when you're young, not everyone knows who they want to be and who they are. And for me, being a, what did you call it, a multi-hyphenate, I think I was always that way, but it felt wrong, because I grew up in an era that you my parents had the same job from the beginning of their career to the end. Well, except my dad. He had a stint in politics for a few years. But yeah, it was not like, oh, if you don't know what you want to do with your life, you're a loser. It's like, well, I'm one of the best losers out there, because I've tried so many different things, and I found my passion for a while, which for a while it was, nutrition and being a naturopath. I really enjoyed that career. And then eventually it just kind of became draining to be everyone's listening ear. So I decided that was no longer for me. There was no shame in it, and moved on to something different.
I love that because it's so true, right? Like, gone are the
Hmm.
days of, like, I mean, I'm sure that there are still people out there who have been in the same roles for like 20, 30 years. Like, I know many of them, but I don't think it equates being a failure if you're not. You know what I mean? Like, if you
Hmm.
change things up, if you chase passion and find joy in life, and you were a naturopath and you got drained by that. So naturally, like, well, the old version, the older generation would say, okay, well, that doesn't matter. I have bills to pay and roof and all of these things. I'm going to keep pushing forward. But in essence, you already had that mentality when you were younger.
I did. I never thought that that was okay. I was like, fine. And I think we're so, our, our, our society is like, oh, you graduate high school at 17, 18, and you are expected to know what you want to do for the rest of your life. That's absurd. Absolutely absurd. Like, how is that even possible? You haven't lived.
I've only figured out what I want to do with the rest of my life as far as I can see, because
Mm-hmm.
we don't know what life's going to bring us, right? Or how things are going to change. But I only figured that out within the last couple of years, and I'm 44. Like before that, I had all these dreams and aspirations, but I was like empty. So, like I didn't have any direction or ethic, work ethic, anything
Mm-hmm.
to really like put behind all of that, right? It took a long time to get to be that person.
Yeah.
But I want to go back a little bit. So you grew up, and without giving away too much of this story, because the story is really beautiful.
Thank you.
I found some parts kind of heavy, but heavy in a not heavy in like a this is really draining type way. Heavy as in like you just kind of like you have to breathe. And I found
Mm-hmm.
myself my body breathing in to sort of like because I'm putting myself in your situation in the story, and I'm like that's a lot. Like recognizing like that's a lot, right? I I found that oh my gosh, I can't say too much, but your perception being young, Morgan's perception being young in the book, Morgan's perception being young in the book was I understand how it came about. I understand how it was shaped. Like you do a good job at really sort of like lining that out and not leaving a lot to wonder, if you will. You paint a really nice picture. Um, but there's a part of me that feels like I just want to go back to Morgan when she's a young woman and like just take her and tell her that she's going to be okay and that you don't have to hold all this and you don't have
Mm-hmm.
to minimize yourself to be palatable to others, to be less of a burden to others, right?
Yeah. And it's still something that I work on. And I think yeah, I can be very introverted and I can be very extroverted, and depends who I'm with. And I've come to realize that not everyone deserves to have access to my energy, to my Milaness, right? It's like not everyone deserves that. And to your point, that I this was at the beginning of the book. I know you've read this part, but I wrote here for my sister Sarah, who has always inspired me to live to my fullest potential, and for the little girl in me who was always so hard on herself. And I've seen this trend that people are using AI, and I have been wanting to do this, and they take a picture of their younger self and a picture of themselves currently, and AI turns it that these two versions of themselves are hugging one another. And I
Oh,
said
that sounds cute.
I need to do that because it's such a big part of I feel like I've become the person that my younger self would have needed.
Isn't it funny how that happens?
It is. It
Right?
is.
I first heard that saying I think during the pandemic actually, if I'm not wrong. During the pandemic was when I first heard that spoken, and I thought it made me pause, and I was like, oh yes, actually, like I would be the protector for younger Curtis. I would be the
Mm-hmm.
person that he could tell everything he needed to tell without judgment and
Yep.
all of those things, right? So yeah, so that book, the story, the character, that whole it makes me, like I said, makes me want to go back and sit with her and just have a conversation, right? And talk about how you can be anything you want to be. Now, I want to know, I'm curious. You said that you were still sort of having these kind of conflicts, maybe even up into the pandemic.
Yeah, and I wonder often if the pandemic changed something because I think the pandemic is as crappy as a time as that was. It really did allow a lot of people to just break down the walls that we had built and say, you know what, I'm going to do what works for me. I'm going to work from home because it's good for my mental health. I'm going to start saying no because the pandemic taught me that that's okay. And that if I don't feel comfortable doing something, I don't have to. But I think for me, it was all of these walls started breaking down extremely slowly when I became a mother 11 years ago because I noticed some things that I was repeating that I no longer wanted to repeat, whether it was things that I was doing or I was catching myself doing that maybe my parents had done or my grandparents had done that I didn't appreciate. So to your point earlier, or to our point about being the person that we needed when we were younger, I tried to really be that person for my son. Make him feel listened to, make him feel like, oh, if someone's, if someone's causing you problems, yes, I'm going to teach you how to deal with that on your own, but I'm going to defend you as well. I'm going to be here for you. I'm not going to let you fight these things by yourself. So that was something that I never felt that I had. I never felt that I had someone to protect me that way. All the battles I had to face on my own. So yeah, that's something that I really try to as well. But the big kicker for me, and this happened right before I got the idea for the book, was, excuse me, Sarah and I had this big fight when I went home. And I mean, whether you're 40 or you're 60 or you're 20, I think some of us can still fight with our siblings as if we were 10, 12, 13 years old. And we were fighting about something completely trivial. And normally I'd come back home. I live 6 hours away from where she is now. I'd come home and just feel guilty about it and never apologize, never bring it up, because I thought she doesn't get it, just because of her level of comprehension. So the next day I got home and I called her and I said, listen, what happened last night, that stupid fight that we had, that was my fault. You didn't deserve to be treated that way. That was your thing that I was trying to give away. Like, you had every right to be wrong, or every right to be upset. And after I spoke to her, even though she was like, yeah, it's fine, how was your drive? Like, she never even acknowledged it, just because, again, her level of comprehension isn't always there, or she's not able to show it. It was like a week after that Mom and I had this big chat, and I said, I feel like a horrible person. And Mom said, no one has these expectations on you but you. So it was after, like, those layers had been begun to be peeled that these ideas started coming, that the book kind of became an idea, and I kind of just ran with it. I said, this is a story. This is something. This is better than I ever imagined.
Well, it's definitely a story, for sure. Lessons that can be learned through the lens of Morgan and Sadie, right? Whom you've mentioned the real life counterparts in there, right? So it Morgan and Mila, Sadie and Sarah, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like so you wrote the book starting in the pandemic or after the pandemic?
I started writing the book in end of July 2022.
Okay.
And almost 3 years later, it was published. I published it this year.
But that's amazing.
Mm.
Like, that is, like, and then did you have members of your family read, like, advanced copies?
Yes. So,
Boys?
these are my dogs. Yeah, I'm trying to keep them entertained without being too noisy, so they're right here chewing on a bone. Yeah, I've got two now. One, we got this, Royce is a year and a half, and his little sister Marlo is 6 months old. So we're busy.
Great name.
But yeah, Mom wanted to read it, and I wanted her to read it because not only was it a chance for me to share some things that had happened, but it was also a chance for them, Mom and Dad, to share some things that they had never brought to light. Maybe some mom, there's a scene in the book where they come and take Sarah away for surgery, and just getting those things off their chest. So it was a very healing experience for everyone. And yeah, Mom wanted to read it first, and I again wanted her to read it just because I wanted to make sure that, not that anyone would have known because it's fiction, but to me, I wanted to make sure that all of those details and all of those diagnoses and all of those the doctors, even their titles, were correct. Dad was very adamant about not wanting to read it until it was published. He wanted to hold a physical copy in his hand. I was extremely nervous about him reading it just because he wasn't always painted in the nicest light, because we didn't always get along. Come to find out, we're very similar, which is probably the reason. And he had the sweetest message to say when he did finish reading it. He texted me late one night back in April, like a few days after he got his copy. And he said, "You had no reason to be nervous about me reading this." He said, "Your feelings were valid. We all screwed up. We all did things that we regret." And he said, "I'm so proud of you." And it was like the most
Did you
healing
cry?
message I think I'm not a huge crier. My eyes will get misty. Like I saw a commercial this morning for sick kids, and I was like, "Oh my god!" Like, so I will cry at random things, but I'm not. I'm internally emotional.
Mm-hmm.
It takes a lot for me to break down. So, yeah, I'm super private about that stuff, and I think that maybe goes back to growing up and not wanting guys. Can you like they literally slept all day, and now that I'm doing this, it's like they know. So yeah, it was yeah. It I didn't cry, but I felt when the Grinch like his heart just like
Yep.
I felt that. Yeah.
It's interesting because like I could feel moisture coming to my eyes when you said it, when you told me. Because the relationship is strained when you are younger, at least
Mm-hmm.
in your perception, right? And some of the actions and disapprovals of the father in this particular book, which actually leads me to wanting to read, but we're going to take a first break. I want to read the section of the book that I love. And please don't worry about the dogs making noises. I have a 10-month-old Shih Tzu sleeping. I've trained her to sleep when I'm on the computer. It took a long time.
So smart.
And, but there's many a podcast where you can hear her bark or tearing the house apart because, yeah, I was not prepared for my first dog ever. I was not prepared for how much work a puppy was. But she's calming down. But anyway, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Partner today with CK Sims and Pod in My Noggin to get in front of an audience that cares. You will be supporting mental health stories, tales of resilience, and uplifting content, aligning your brand with bringing goodness, authenticity, and kindness front and center. This spot could be yours. Do you have a story of struggle and resilience? One that you want to share with others and possibly help someone through their own struggles? Find the link in the show description and fill out the guest form today.
Welcome back, everyone. Before the break, we have been talking to author Mila Maxwell about her book, Finding Lady Baltimore. She is a fellow Canadian, hailing from the East Coast, the same as I. And she has written this book, which is very similar to her life, her actual life. But it is fictionalized, so you can guess what's real and what's not real. Just keep that in mind. We're talking about the things of mental health, and growing and looking back and being reflective and seeing things through different eyes. And Mila shared with us just before the break that she was very nervous about her father reading this particular book, but he sent her quite a healing and validating text message that almost made me cry. She didn't cry, almost made me cry. So about her dad, in the book, you will see that there are some tensions in that relationship between Morgan and her father, who is a political figure in the book and was in real life as well, I believe, right?
Yeah.
And I'm not going to read the whole chapter. I'm just going to read the part that I loved because it just felt like I was reading my life, if I will.
Okay.
Okay. So it's actually chapter 28. Oh, I hate him so much. I screamed into my pillow. Why does he try to control me so much? I wondered. I'm almost 18 years old. I heard the garage door close and was finally home alone. Ah, bliss. No one needs anything from me. I can just be. It was Sunday morning, and every Sunday our family went to church. But that morning, I wasn't going. I hadn't wanted to go for a while, ever really, usually finding some excuse to avoid the sermon. The choir was often the perfect excuse. Singing was something I quite enjoyed doing, but other times I could get out of it by being an altar server, or helping teach Sunday school to the kids. I've never really had the courage to bring it up with Dad, though, the fact that I was done with church. Sure, I had made a number of snide comments about not wanting to go, insisting that repeating the same things from thousands of years ago wasn't exactly involved. That week, I finally took a stand because of what happened the previous Friday. And then I'm just going to read this little section here, okay? Because I'm not giving too much away. It's just very isolated. You were working at the Save Easy, and you hear an older woman say, "What do you mean you don't know?" And she was berating your coworker. So I'm paraphrasing right now as not to read everything. And your coworker was chill as a cucumber and said, "I can check with the manager when we expect to see if we're going to get more." And they were like, "Don't bother. I'm going to go to the competitor." And you wanted to scream at her, right? Also, yeah, that shade of lipstick would look better on a 14-year-old. Love that.
It was
Then
so
you
pink.
it was so pink. Yeah. Then you remembered where you knew her from. She attended your church every Sunday. You thought this woman goes to church every Sunday, yet here she is treating my friend like garbage because we sold out of the bread she wanted. It didn't sit right with you, so you told your dad. If this is the kind of person who goes to church, a person who thinks they can be ignorant and mean all week and show up on Sundays to have her sins forgiven, then I want no part of it. I love that section.
And that
That
actually
real.
happened. That's true.
I'm not
That
surprised.
wasn't made up. Yeah.
I'm not
And
surprised.
I think I've always been I'm less sensitive than I used to be because it was slowly killing me from the inside. But I was always very sensitive, always used to managing a room, always so aware of the social dynamics and who was treating who how, and very sensitive to all that. So it doesn't surprise me that I would have picked up on that. And yeah, I was like, you know what? This isn't for me. It's not. I don't agree with this. And I'm obviously not saying that anyone that goes to church is that way. I know many of my friends go to church and they're wonderful human beings. But in that particular instance, I was like, where have we seen her before? And I'm like, she sits in the fourth row on the right side every week. I was like, no, not cool.
I will go as far as to say some of the worst people out there are churchgoers.
Mm-hmm.
Just say that. But not all churchgoers are the worst people.
Right.
But yeah, I think back to being younger than this, younger than 18, and looking for all of the possible ways to get out of church. And it happened for me when I turned 12. I pretended to be sick, and my parents went to church because they were the ministers, right? So they, sort of like being an MP's daughter, you have to live your life like perfectly, all the pressures and blah, blah, blah. Anyway, so I pretended to be sick. They went to church. I got up and I cooked Sunday dinner. So when they got home from church, they walked into the house where normally they would have to walk in and then like put the roast on and you eat lunch like 1:30 or something like that. They came home from church. The table was set. All of everything was done. And they sat down and they ate and it was delicious. And then I got the go-ahead that I could just stay home and make Sunday dinners. And I babysat every Sunday night, so I didn't have to go to church.
Perfect.
So this was fantastic for me because I too found much hypocrisy in the whole church sort of situation, and it wasn't a fit for me when I was growing up. It's not a fit for me now, for sure. I'll only go listen to a few select ministers, and these are people who I know who practice what they preach.
Right.
Right. So, I love that part, and that's about where I stopped because I'm like, I'm gonna
Okay.
be really close to the end because um, I don't want to ruin it, and I probably would because I feel like I would just like drop something, so I'm not. I don't know what's gonna happen next, but I will comment on it once I'm done and give it a review.
Yeah, you'll have to message me once you're. We'll have to have a conversation after you finished it, just to see if it was what you expected or. But no, that's an interesting. It's funny when I chat with different people, which passages or which chapters or sections resonate the most with them.
So for me, I think I didn't have anyone in the family who had any sort of illness whatsoever. So wasn't exposed, like except for myself, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
I was the sickly one growing up, I guess, if you
Okay.
will. But so I mean, I've known people who have had family members who went through illness or had disabilities. Is that the political thing to say now? Disability, or is it something else?
Yeah, and I mean, I had that same question when I started writing the book because I'm very sensitive to disability language. I hate the R word. I had this conversation with some of my fire friends on the way home from training the other afternoon that they use it and they don't even think of it. And I said, well, I've gotten kind of, I don't want to say desensitized, but it doesn't hit me like it used to because I used to hear the R word and think it was a direct insult to my sister. I was like, do
Of
these
course.
people not remember or not recognize that I have a sibling that is, quote, the R word? So I've had to relax with that a little bit and not take it so personally, but it used to really I'd hear that word and it was like a literal punch in the gut. Like, I can't believe you still use that word. So yeah, very sensitive to disability language. And I had interviewed where Sarah can't, excuse you, you're eating that plant. Where Sarah can't really use that language and express how she wants to be, um, how she wants her disability talked about. I was always told use the person first and their specific disability, if they choose to, after. So it's like Sarah has cerebral palsy, or it's not my sister has a disability, not my disabled sister. So whenever I
Okay.
was able to, I would use her actual diagnosis. Um, I'm trying to get away from the term special needs because I think we all have special needs. Um, so yeah, I'm very cognizant of how I approach it, and everyone is different. You might have someone that has something and they want to not even talk about it. So it just, I guess it depends on the person.
It does. It's. I think it is very person centric in the sense, excuse me, that depends on what their experience or lived experience is. I try to keep up on the changes, right? Because there are changes as we evolve, times evolve. You know, people like updated terms. Some of
Mm-hmm.
them don't make sense to me. They don't, but that's not for me to decide, right? I won't give you an example now on the thingy, but on recording. But like some of them don't make sense to me. How they're less offensive.
Right.
Okay, you know, I'm going to be vulnerable. So I
Go.
think you know, initially we were taught midget,
Yeah.
right? Then we were taught dwarfs, and then the change came little person. And I always struggle with that one. It's not for me to struggle with in the sense like I don't need to understand why because I am not. That's not my lived experience. So fine, I will use that. But it's one of those things that I'm like, how does that sounds more condescending to say little person than it does to say
Yep.
other. So you know what I
And
mean?
it's
But
it
I mean,
is it is challenging. And it's like, I think as long as we remember that everyone's people, right?
yes,
Male, female, gay, straight, trans, tall, short, like we're all people. And
just
it's
people.
yes, I had a conversation with a friend of mine who worked with someone who did not want to be referred to no longer as she. She was transitioning and wanted to be refer to as they. And my poor friend, who is the kindest, gentlest, sweetest soul, had a hard time remembering. And this person would get very angry with her. So she would say, you know, please give me time to adapt. Like I'm not being insensitive. I'm not trying to be hurtful, but you have long hair. I'm used to referring to you as she. So it might take me a little bit of time and I might forget and I might screw up once in a while. But I'm trying. So I think we have to be firm in what we want and how we want to be treated, but we also have to see some level of innocence there. And whether it's someone's upbringing, and I think, yeah, if someone's being condescending and like very rude, you have the right to get angry with them. But if someone's obviously trying and they're trying to understand what you're going through, give them a little bit of a leeway there.
Yeah. Well, so it's interesting because I have it's not a nephew because we're not related by blood, but it's my best friend's nephew. And so I've known them since they were like baby. And they now,
Yeah.
born female. And they changed their name. And it took a long time and it's not because I didn't respect their choices or any of those things, but you grow up, you spend years and years referring to someone as a specific pronoun or a specific name to make a switch, and to have that happen immediately is almost impossible. The R word for me does not surprise me. It's the East Coast, and I don't think that I'm not saying it's the East Coast as being derogatory. I think the R word was very much a part of our language, our vernacular, if you will, growing up. Like it was just like the C word, which I don't know why I just said the C word because it's one of my favorite words ever.
Me too.
I use it all the time.
All the time. And I'm like, oh.
But up here, I live in Montreal now, and up here in Montreal or in Ontario, if you go there and you use the C word, they're so offended. And I'm like, no. I'm like, the C word is like literally equivalent to fuck in Newfoundland, in the East Coast. Like it's just so natural. Like it's just there's no weirdness with it.
It used to irk me, and now it cracks me up. I just like so my cousin just got married, and someone at the wedding was causing a scene. And I wanted to chat with her about it afterwards. So she left me this very long voice memo. And I said, oh my God, what a C word. And at the end, my cousin actually calls her that. And I friggin' lost it. I was like, yes! I was like, there you go. I was like, let her have it. She deserved it.
Yeah, well, sometimes people can be cunts. There we go. It's out there. There's the word. There's the word. But there's the C word, just in case you were wondering what it was. But yeah, I'm sure most people knew what it was. Although I don't know if you're, because a lot of my listeners are in the US, so I don't know if the C word is something that they would use often. You don't hear it on TV often. It's more Irish.
No, I feel like it's, and it's almost like the word bloke. Like I was telling my husband this because he has a coworker who's very English. And he's like, I love the way he talks. He's like, you can't be in a bad mood when you're talking to someone from England. I'm like, I agree. I'm like, did he call you a bloke? He's like, he did.
Love this. Yes. Okay, so when you finished writing the book, the last edit, if you will, what did you feel like?
Friends, not a lot of friends, but I have a few friends that wrote books, and they were almost, when the book was done, they were almost afraid to release it into the wild. They had this, oh my gosh, like I've done the work, now it's go time. I never had that. I was more, just one sec, they're going to knock this plant over. Excuse you both. Out. I was so beyond caring what people thought at that point. It was more of number one, am writing this book for me. If I sell one copy or 1,000, great. It was something I wanted to do. And I was kind of beyond the point of giving a shit, honestly. I was like, okay, I've done it. I'm releasing it. This is what I've worked super hard with. I was just afraid of having spelling mistakes because I'm kind of a stickler for proofreading and things like that. But
None that I saw.
no,
None that I saw. I thought you sent it off for editing. Did you not send it off for editing?
yeah, I did. And then I read it one more time. And then I read it one more time and another time. I think there's a bold period in there.
Not that I think I saw. And I think what's interesting too, though, is that like someone could be reading it and not catch that you're speaking. And I'll be quite honest with you, the way that Sadie speaks in the book is very. It reads East Coaster. Did you realize that? Like, is that
No.
Like, I understand that she has an impediment, right, based on the cerebral palsy. But if you actually go and you read like a book by an East Coaster who are using linguistic schemes of East Coasters, there's
I'll
quite a
have to
number.
review that. Maybe it was so subconscious. I never even realized.
Yeah, so I was like, it felt very natural.
Okay. Well, that's Sarah. She's very natural.
Yeah. So, but no, I didn't notice. There's I'm seeing one bold quotation. That's it. But okay, so I'll tell you something about me and how I read. So, I love to read, like absolutely nonstop. And so it takes me on average about 4 hours to read a book, like this size.
Oh my gosh, that's super impressive.
And I didn't know how I did it, but I learned over the last couple of years is that my brain doesn't have to read every single letter.
Mm-hmm.
It reads the sentence and it translates what's happening in the book. There was only
impressive
3 or 4 times that I was like, wait, what? And I'll put the brakes on and go back and read something, right? The book is really, really lovely. And then I also love all of the cute little things that came with it. And then also the little notes, CK, some stories find us when we're ready to understand them. Much love and thanks for reading, Mila. So, like, I get a lot of books, but not a lot of books I get are signed. So it's always extra special for me to have a book that's signed by the author. Like, that's massive. Looking back at young Curtis, who would have realized, who dreamt of this, right? No, dreamt of it as being Oprah Winfrey, but maybe one day, we don't know what's going to happen. But to have people send me their books that I get to read and enjoy and then talk to them about, like that's success to me. Like that's something not everybody gets to do. And then to also have it signed by the author. So you see a lot of books. I think there's only 3 that are signed.
I love your backdrop, by the way, the shelves and the plants. Love it.
These are all the books that I've had on the show so far this year. You will be living right here for the remainder of this year. So people will see it on every podcast.
Thank you.
You know what's so funny? This really felt less like a podcast episode and more like just a conversation. Like it was
Agreed.
Very relaxed. Can you lift your puppy up? I want to see.
This is the almost 6-month-old one, and the other one is like he's 40 pounds. I don't know if I can lift him up, but he's more of a beige. But yeah, this is Marlo.
Look at the babies. Oh, the love of a dog, man. The love of a dog. I never knew what it was like until I got one, and I had her for 3 weeks. I was sitting on the couch. And I was just looking at her laying around, and I burst into tears, like just full waterworks. And I was like thanking God for the blessing to have found her and all these things. And then I took me a little while. I hugged her and I kissed her. And I remember messaging my best friend, and I was like, oh, I think I'm in menopause. And she was like, what? And I joke with her about it because she had a hysterectomy at 35 because she has the BRCA1.
Okay.
And she was like, why? And I'm like, I was just sitting on the couch looking at Piper earlier and I cried uncontrollably. And I've known her my whole, like, I can't say my whole life, but since I was 18. So
Mm-hmm.
when she went through menopause, she woke up in it, in the middle of it because of the hysterectomy. And
Right.
so you would just have, she would be laughing one minute and crying the next, right? So like that's why I was like, I think I can
Yeah, I'm not
menopause.
looking forward to that. I just turned 40 and I'm like, well, I'm going to ride this wave as long as I can.
But you're in peri, right?
What?
You're in perimenopause now. That
Yeah.
starts around 35, 36 years old. It comes up, it
So far,
creeps
so
up.
good.
Yeah, so a lot of, I think it manifests differently for everybody. Um, I just like that, we can have the conversation openly at this point in life. Whereas,
Yeah.
20 years ago, if I, a man, would have been like, well, you're in peri, like, you would have been like, excuse you, or like, it
Yeah.
would have been
I'm
socially
over all
unacceptable.
that. I mean, there's certain people I would not talk about, like, oh, I just started my period. But I have this one guy friend that it's like, yeah. He's like, are you close to your period? It's like, yeah. He's like, oh, you're being a bitch right now. It's like, oh, thanks. Like, he can talk that way, right?
Yeah,
It's like,
it's one of those things. But I think, and this is a so different topic than your book, but I think I love the place that we're in now, more as a society where women's issues are not so taboo and hush hush, and you can actually
yeah,
speak about them openly without being shunned or whatever that may be. We still have so much further to go, but it's a great trajectory to get us to where we need to be.
for
Mila, what's
sure.
next for you?
Sure. I'd love to write another one, but I'm going to make sure that it's not forced, that it's, I mean, I'm not expecting this transcendent, ethereal sort of epiphany like the first one, like this one. I think that was something very special, very miraculous. Honestly, like it was, I was laying, I don't know if I've told you the story, but I was laying in bed one night. My husband, like I have a background in journalism, and he's like, you should write a book. You should write a book. And I was like, no. And he and I were joking around one night as we were going to bed, and I said, "What would I even write about? Like erotica?" as a joke. So yeah, he fell asleep, and the book idea stayed with me. And as I was falling asleep, I got this sentence in my head, which went: Martha was only 17 years old when her entire life flashed before her eyes, except it wasn't her life at all. It was that of her younger sisters. And I was like, "Holy shit!" I said, "That's a book." Full body like chills, sat up in bed, found a post-it note, wrote that sentence down. And that was, even though I changed the name from Martha to Morgan. And if you look up the name Morgan, you'll see why. Because I tried to pick names that had meaning to our characters personally, but also where we grew up. And to keep the first letter of our names real. But yeah, I wrote that down on a post-it and I kept it on my desk. And whenever I felt that I was straying from that based on maybe just trying new things or different editors saying different things, I was like, nope, this has to be the core of the story. Feeling what she feels, going through what she's going through. And then it just evolved to, not just me and realizing things from an older perspective, but what my parents went through as well. So it was cool how it came about, and I will excuse you, I will write another one, but only if it feels as good as that first one did to me.
I don't know if that's possible. It might, but like
Mm.
your first one, and I just want to commend you for being able to cut out the noise, right, and stick to your truth in what you wanted to write.
Yeah.
Because that can be really challenging when you have people trying to alter the story because of readability or marketability or whatever the situation they may be throwing.
And that's interesting you say that. So the first editor that I had hired, it was a friend of mine's friend who was in that industry, and she's like, "Well, I don't like fiction and I don't like dialogue." I'm like, "Well, this is not going to work." And then when I published the book, or I began the publishing process, I had hired a coach because I said if I want to do it again, I'd like to know how to do it. And he said, next time you write a book, you should know your audience. And I said, I'm so glad that I didn't know my audience for this one, because I didn't have a set theme. I didn't have a set genre. I wrote it for me. I did not write it because someone else might think something. It was like, nope, it will fit where it fits. It will resonate with who it resonates. And I'm not changing any of it. It was obviously the closest thing to a memoir that I could have written, but to me, writing a memoir felt very flat. It was not for me. It was not the way that I wanted to tell her story. I wanted to have some fun with it and some imagination with it, and I really feel that I did that. And I honored our story. I honored the way that I wanted to tell it, and I think that's a bonus of self-publishing too, is you can control all that.
You can control all that. Absolutely. And I think it's so important, right? Because it's your story, it's your legacy. It's, 20 years from now, this book will still be this book. The story will still be the story. And if you had listened to any of these ideologies of somebody else and reshaped the book, how many regrets would you have had?
So many. So
right?
many. And I would have written it for someone else's parameters to fit into a box, and it was never going to fit into a box or a suitcase, right? It was never meant to do that.
I hope that you do write another book, and I hope that you write it through that same lens.
Okay.
Don't write books that you think people are going to want to read. Write books that are authentic to you. Do you know what I mean? Like, we have authors out there, right? Like, churning out books left, right, and center. Like, there's no shortage of things to read, but authenticity, like when you can connect really with the person or the character or the story, that is something magical, right? It's when you can feel the author's soul in the pages. That is something that's really magical, and it's not something that you get often with commercial fiction. So that's that. Like, I will support you in your writing journey. If it chooses to continue, you have to do what's right for you. But I do think that you're skilled and you're talented, and definitely have something to offer people who enjoy reading authentic books that feel that are relatable and layered and have depth.
And I don't know how to not be authentic. I think I was inauthentic for a long time, and I'm never going back to that. If it doesn't feel true to me, or it doesn't, it's not a resounding yes, then it's a no.
I love that. Well, it has been an absolute pleasure to have this conversation. We're so just chill today. Like, I do have a very chill conversation most of the time, but today just felt really like relaxed and lovely, and like I'm just connecting with a friend. You know what I mean? Like,
I agree.
Finding Lady Baltimore, everyone, is available for purchase pretty much anywhere online, and actually in the East Coast, which is massive. I love this. Indigo, Holes, and Chapters, right? On the East Coast.
Yep, you can get it not in Newfoundland at the moment. I haven't been there in a while, but most of the maritime provinces, it's available.
We'll have to get that Newfoundland covered. But you can get it on Amazon as well, right?
Yes, yep.
So come on, East Coasters. The story features the coastline, right? It's happening right in your backyards, essentially. Get out there and support. All the way down the East Coast, U.S. as well. Like, it can be applied.
Eastern Seaboard.
Absolutely. And let's get Mila Maxwell on a New York. We can do New York Times, but I was just going to say a bestsellers list. Like, let's pump this book up. It's great. It's worth the read. And I'd love to know your thoughts about it. If you do read it, you can put a comment on the podcast, and I'll make sure it gets back to Mila as well. But also, you can go to milamaxwell.mycanva.site and check out the book there. And I'm going to link your Instagram and Facebook as well. And I didn't have to reference here because we pretty much covered everything in such a natural way. It was all covered. So, and who knows, maybe we'll see another book from Mila Maxwell in the future.
Perhaps.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much for being a guest on the show. I wish you all the best in your future endeavors. And for everyone at home, until next time, get out there and live your wildest dreams.
For media and sponsorship inquiries, email info@cksims.com or visit cksims.com and fill out the contact form. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss an episode. A new episode airs every Saturday. CKS Media.